Hello, Saadi.
Hello, Antonio. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Me too. So, how's your health? Everything okay? Weather's fine?
Weather is not fine, but the health is good.
Okay. Good evening, Mustafa.
Mustafa, good to see you.
Good evening, Antonio and the others all.
Thank you.
Good
Good
to see
evening,
you,
Olga.
Good to see you, Antonio.
Good evening.
Good to see you, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Aicha.
Aicha.
Good evening, Eman.
Good evening.
Eman. What an amazing team, huh?
Yeah, this is now a full house.
Wow.
Yes. So,
Very nice.
before you start, and we start the discussions as usual, and the polls and the interactions, I'd like each one of us to introduce herself or himself, like in a quick manner, so that we are all acquainted to each other. So how about, Antonio, we say ladies first?
Perfect.
Okay, okay. So let's start from Congo.
Okay, my name is Aicha Betombo from Congo, as you said. I'm about to do my test to be a specialist on strategic implementation. And actually, I'm on leave from my workplace because I had a master to do in Uganda that I completed successfully. Now I'm back on my country. Thank you.
And
now I'm back on my country. In business administration, operation, specialization on operations. Yes. So now I'm back in my country and I will start my job on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to our group, Aicha. We are happy to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Olga, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You are joining us from London.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everyone. So my name is Olga Valadon, and I'm based in the UK. And unusually today, it's nice, bright, and sunny, but cold. So I'm a recently certified strategy implementation professional and also a certified professional coach. Sometimes people ask me, what does that mean in reality? When you talk about strategy implementation, and all I keep saying to people, I help teams build their future. So I'm really happy to be here today with you.
Interesting. Welcome and congratulations for being a graduate of the strategy implementation professional. Okay. What a wonderful certification. And Antonio, we are growing. You are number one, but you are not the only one now. Okay. Very soon there will be hundreds of strategy implementation professionals all around the world.
That's the goal.
Yes, yes. Eman from Bahrain.
So yes, my name is Eman Deabil. I am from Bahrain. I am a recent graduate from the Strategy Implementation Professional course. I am proud that I am the first Bahraini to do this course and actually to get the certificate. And I am a doctorate student. I'm currently studying doctorate. My thesis will be around team dynamics and its impact on business outcomes. And I am a published author. I co-authored 3 books so far. The last one was Women on Success, and it was published recently, April 2020. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Great, you are welcome. So we have 3 women on success with us tonight. The most number of women tonight, Antonio. We are happy tonight. Okay.
Very.
Congratulations also, Eman, again, for having the strategy implementation professional. You are not the only Bahraini, you are the only Bahraini, Saudi, Emirati, GCC woman to have the strategy implementation professional. Hopefully many will follow your path. So.
Now I feel more proud then. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. Now, to go to the male side. Mustafa Hafizoglu, my friend from Turkey, from Ankara. Good evening. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Good evening. Hello, everybody. This is Mustafa.
Hello.
I've been working as a program and project management for about 22 years, especially in aerospace and defense industry. And I'm currently program director at STT Space and Defense Technologies, a research and development company based in Ankara. I'm the past president of PMI Turkey chapter. I also authored a book with 2 co-authors, Analytic Approach of Project Management. And I'm also a recently gained Strategy Implementation Professional certificate, which I feel very valuable. So that's all.
Congratulations, Mustafa.
Thank you.
You are the first Turkish to have it. And Antonio, one thing, Mustafa is already offering training on strategy implementation for several companies in Turkey. They are very much interested in this topic. I believe all organizations should be interested. Maybe they don't know it, not yet, but they need it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, should I introduce Antonio or Antonio introduce himself? Everybody knows you, Antonio, our friend from Spain who lives in Belgium, and he directs JSK, PMO, authors a book, writing a book for Harvard Business Review. We are very proud of that. He's also Thinkers 50, Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches, ex-chairman for PMI Board of Directors, and professor in multiple universities, and author for several books.
Thank you, Saadi. I'm very, very humbled to be part of this amazing team. And I'm so happy to hear your opinion, your thoughts. I think you only get better when you are around great people, and I feel that tonight. And I like the diversity. I think something that is super important, not just for the numbers, but really it does bring a lot of value to everyone. So I'm really happy to be here for the next hour, maybe hour and a half. You never know with Saadi when this finish. You know when it starts, you don't know when these webinars finish.
We are being agile, okay? So by this, we'd like to start the presentation now.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join in our webinar tonight. It's a pleasure to be back with advisors, with Dr. Saadi. I truly enjoy this sessions. Is more than just a webinar. It's something where we all exchange, we all learn. I learn from everybody as well who comments and puts tough questions or different point of view. So I just feel coming home again. So I hope you will find the discussion interesting. The panel, it's amazing tonight. So I'm really looking forward to the dialogue as well. To start, to set a bit the scene and the topic, I told Dr. Saadi that as part of one project I'm currently busy, which is writing the Harvard Business Review Project Management Handbook. I started a few months ago. It has to be done by November, so the time is not much. But one anecdote, I think we all know in the world of projects that project management has not been regarded as something really strategic or like a topic which matters at the top of organizations. I'm talking globally. There are places, there are some companies, there are some industries where they do appreciate project management, but generally speaking, not. And one of these examples is that the latest version, the last time Harvard Business Review had published a book on project management was 2010. And it was the previous HBR Project Management Handbook. And to be honest, and just between us, it was not great. It was mostly a compilation of articles, and it was not really a handbook. And I think coming from the project management world, I was not impressed. So suddenly now, since a year or so, they say, well, actually, we should be writing more about project management strategy. implementation. So I was lucky to be chosen to write the book. And as part of the book, I convinced HBR to do a global research. You know, they do have a quite strong database. They do have access to senior leaders and executives and CEOs. So I said, well, if we do the book, let's do a research. And today is the first time I talk about the research extensively. So you are the first ones who will see part of the results, not all of them, but part. And I hope they trigger some discussions. There's quite some positive news. So this is exclusive for this webinar today in Advisors, where I will be share some of the facts and what executive thinks and professionals too. Unfortunately, I cannot share the slides yet, as there will be part of the book, but yeah, I think my background bio you've seen, and I'm happy to connect.
Please, our dear panelists, can you kindly mute your mics? Thank you.
This is what I was saying, the book, which for me, it's like a nice achievement, not just for me, I think for project management professionals. I know many of you when I was chairman of PMI or in the board, and I know how hard you all work. The project managers, they are committed, they are engaged, they work really hard, not just for the project, defending their projects with the senior leaders, kind of fighting to get the resources and the attention. So I think the more we get visibilities at the HBR level, the senior management level, the better for us. I want to thank a nice colleague, Antoine Adams, who helped me with the research. He's the founder of PMI Online. He has been in some of these webinars too. So just the demographics of the survey, we get in the end about 1,300 responses, 556 senior executives. These are the top leaders around the world. There were some more professionals, project experts or professionals. It's the first time HBR does a survey on project management. We have the traditional surveys from PMI, APMG, but HBR had never done that. So I think that's also a nice step. You see here the spread of the participants, not too many from the Middle East, executives 4%, mostly not 42% executive from North America, Asia 12%. So you can see it's quite representative, and you can see the size of the companies. So we're going to use the research to also involve you in the discussion. So ask you some poll. So the first poll question that we have here is, how do you split your time between the following activities? This is the first question we ask to senior leaders: strategy and long-term thinking, day-to-day management of the organization, projects and implementation of initiatives. So according to you, which one is the number one? Where do executives spend most of their time? Long-term, day-to-day, or project work?
Okay.
Whenever you are.
It's done.
Okay, great. So 50% of the participants, we have 115 on the call, think that the priority is day-to-day management. 25% is strategy and long-term, and 24. So a fair split there. So according to the research, the feedback we got is you see the orange is executives spend 23% of their time. So it's about a day and a little bit on strategic matters, long-term things. This is not too bad. I think to me, that was a nice surprise to see, although they should spend probably more. And you are all mostly right. 41% of their time is on day-to-day activities, which is, I think, still quite a lot for a senior leader to be spending if they know how to delegate. And 32% on project and implementation, which is not too bad, I would say. I think it has to increase. I would see them more playing on strategy and projects than actually in day-to-day, but this is the fact. This is what leaders are spending their time today. So you see there's still quite some change to be expected for them on how they allocate their time. So that's the first one. Other feedback, there's quite some comments people could comment, but they do a lot of firefighting and crisis management. They do management activities and holistic view on the organization and work. So I think this is an interesting point. I don't know what happened with this slide. Okay. How much time do you dedicate to leading and managing projects? This was to have a view.
Yes, Antonio. This is another.
These people replied as professionals. Yes.
There is another poll about this.
Okay.
I'm starting the poll now.
These are the project management people, the people who say, well, I'm working in projects. So we wanted to know how many were them 100% dedicated, how many of them were part-time. Yeah, you know, I manage a project, but it's just 10% of my time. So that would give us also a good trend on, well, yeah, how many are really full-time? And you see, I split my day-to-day work with project activities, meaning I have a day-to-day job, operational, and then I do project work. So about 75% is the majority. So they do projects and do a bit of operational task, and the 50-50, it's also on the top. What you see here is not too far. Is only 36%. We're talking about 750 replies. So only 36% are full-time project managers. 28 are doing project management and some other activities. And then a big part, 23%, they're splitting their work. Okay, so this is very important. For me, when we talk about methodologies and PMPs and all these, the 36% is the ones who will go for a certification and dedicate most of the time. Some of the 75% will do that too, but all the others are occasional project managers, and those people are the ones that we need to build their competencies. So this is an interesting fact. Half of them will be professional project managers like us, trained and certified, and the other half who are running projects are still partial project managers. So there's a lot of complexity. They have to do dual roles, and that's one of the biggest challenges in project management. What has been the approximate increase or decrease in the number of projects at your organization in the 5 past years? So from 2015 till today, 1,200 companies. Did they increase the number of projects significantly? So almost double in the last 5 years? Or do you think they just increased importantly, about 25%? No changes a lot at all. The same amount of projects today than 5 years ago. And then you see the other significant increase and decrease. So this question was, excuse me, was trying to reflect the project economy. We remember we talked about it in the past. Do we see the number of projects increasing around us in companies? So what are the real what leaders think? What's the fact? So we can see here as well that 33% of the participants think that there's increase, and there's another 20, so about 55% of the participants think that there has been a significant increase in projects. 8% think there's no close. Interesting, there's 14% of the participants who think have decreased, and 7% more than 50%. So this is something that we can discuss in the open rounds. The statistics, are basically reflecting that there has been a boom of projects. You see the orange color. So 25%. This is 25% of the replies from senior executives say we've doubled the number of projects in the past 5 years. Imagine, these companies are not prepared. They don't have the competencies. They might not even have the PMO. I'm not talking only about traditional project management here. We're talking about other methods like Agile or Lean or other types of changes, but the amount of projects has doubled. Another 31% says that it's increased between 25 and 50%. So this is knowing that in the last 5 years, companies have not really hired lots of people. So they're trying to do more projects with the same capacity or even less. So this is, I think, a worrying, very worrying, good news for us. There's need for good project managers, but yeah, how can they manage the capacity, these organizations, when they're adding? So you see another 31% also seen an increase. So in total, close to, yeah, how many? 90% of the executives say we have increased the number of projects, which is, again, very good news. I don't think it's good news for the projects because I'm not sure they will be able to deliver them. A very little amount of projects companies already have decreased, which is, I guess, companies that have to, maybe bankrupt or big crisis or restructuring. But I think this is quite interesting finding. At least for us, I think this is great. Another poll, please much of your company news is generated by projects. So we wanted to understand how projects impact revenues. And first, do they know that? Do they know what's the value? How much is brought? So it's qualitative because we didn't ask for details, but yes, what's the perception of executives? How much they think projects are bringing? We've not done the detailed analysis per industry or per country, which industry will have more revenues than other. This is part of the work that I still need to do, but it's important that we link projects to value, strategy to value. And this was part of that question. So again, a lot of participation, and the number is, it's huge. If you talk about the number of 40% of the people think that up to 76% to 100% of projects, of the revenues are brought by projects. So that's interesting. Let me show you the results. So again, focusing on the executives, we could do later on another one on professionals, but I think what is interesting here is that it's spread. It's shocking that about 20% of the executives don't know what the value is generated, what the project. I think 20% of the companies bring quite a lot. So you see the 6 to 100% of the revenues. Probably that's our project-driven organizations, consulting, engineering companies, construction. But you see also that there's a huge amount, 20% of the companies that say, well, projects don't bring much revenues. It's just 1 to 25%. So interesting. I think for us as project and strategy experts, we need to understand the value. We need to be able to know how much revenues are brought by projects and change and strategy implementation. But for me, the shocking part is that one. And if you ask the professionals, about 25% of project management professionals, they don't know what's the revenues generated by the project. So a lot to do in that area. I think that's an area we need to discuss and talk. There's a few more statistics that I want to share, and then we'll pick up on them when we have the discussion. What percentage of your organization projects are dedicated? Sorry, I have my picture in the middle. I need to change my picture if I can move it. are dedicated to each of the following. So I use Christian Kleisen's formula of splitting innovation. He talked about efficiency, innovation, sustaining innovation, transformation innovation. Efficiency are more the operational changes, the exploitation, the IT continuous improvement type of projects. Sustaining it's about growth, it's about expansion, new products, and M&A type of work, and transformation projects. These are the new ideas, radical innovation, the new startups. So how much of their projects portfolio, how is it split for the executives? So transformation, 44%, sustaining, 37%, efficiency. Let's check the results. This is important to know because we see where companies are investing. Are they investing in the short term? Are they investing in the midterm? Are they investing really on that big horizon of innovation where really you don't have a clue? Of course, the more efficient projects should be will be more successful. They're easier to do. They're less complex. The more sustaining, the more complexity, more difficult to succeed. Transformation projects, you will not get many through. Okay, so I think here you got most of the right answers. I was surprised to see a fair balance. So there's 34% of the portfolio of these companies spent in efficiency projects, operational, regulatory, IT, 36 on the next, I would say there's efficiencies between 1 year, today and 1 year, sustaining our projects that will have an impact between now and 3 to 5 years, depending. And then 26% are innovation, are things that might happen in 5-10 years. So this is nice to see. I think it's a good benchmark. I still maybe think there are a lot of projects on efficiency, and maybe this at one point should not be even called projects. So this is just for your information, balanced portfolio, and these are some remarks. Then, what's the success ratio of projects in your organization? So, and we've seen Bryland saying that 70% of the projects fail. We've seen HBR, we see PMI. So I wanted to also to have the feedback from the HBR base, and you can see that some people still don't know what is the success ratio. 15% is very poor, 1 to 25% of the projects succeed. This is terrible, the first one. 26 to 50%, that's about 25% of respondents. So it's still quite poor performance. If you look at the results here, only 20% of the respondents, they get close to 100% success of their projects, which still it's a lot. There's 80% of the companies which still have a lot of failure. I'm not saying that you need to succeed in all your projects. If you succeed in all your projects, maybe you're not being ambitious enough. There's some projects that need to fail, but not half of them. This is a big thing that we need to improve. I always say that if companies would improve 20% of their projects, of their strategy implementation, there will be immediate value generated. Okay, so only 20% have a success rate. There's a lot of room for improvement. And I think that's where we will come into the discussions on strategy implementation too. What are the top 3 challenges you face when sponsoring projects? This is to executives too. Too many projects, lack of senior management support, poor accountability on project delivery, lack of project management competencies, hard to align different views around our key projects, poor definition of business case when starting projects, frequent changes in requirements, scope, and timelines. Our culture is not agile enough. We still work very much in silos. Projects hardly ever finish. Hard to stop them when they drag for so long. Lack of resources. So according to you, what's the number 1? I think you can just choose one. But for senior leaders, what's the main challenge? Okay, I see here lack of senior management support, which means part of their colleagues, because we're talking about our culture is not agile. Absolutely, that's a big, big problem. Frequent changes in requirements, scope, and timelines. I think you get it. It's always a very smart group here, Saadi. Don't know where you choose the participants, but it's the brightest group always.
Yes, we pay each one intelligent and smart to join us.
It's really great. It's always challenging. Okay, we're almost coming to the end. We'll finish with, I think there's 2 more left. So let's see what the executive think. Lack of alignment around projects across. So there's a big challenge on communication, on understanding what is a project. Some projects benefits, the project purpose, the business case. There's too many stakeholders to please. That's complexity. Lack of discipline in delivering promised work. Difficulties in understanding the strategic link. Part of too many projects to sponsor. So this is another big, big challenge. How much time do senior leaders in your organization dedicate to sponsoring projects? So as you rightly put in the poll here, senior management support is crucial. What do we see when we talk to project professionals? Well, I think if you start with the bottom, there's a lot of senior executives that dedicate only 2 to 4 hours per week. The next level is dedicate less than 1 hour per week. That's huge. You cannot have that. If senior leaders are not involved in your projects, they will not succeed. Senior leaders don't dedicate any time to projects. Also, quite a lot of replies. And I think one good indicator is dedicate 16 hours, 2 days per week project sponsorship. There's very, very few companies and senior leaders who spend that time. I think if you see the amount of projects that have increased in the past 5 years, you would suppose that senior leaders will spend double their time or triple their time in projects, but that's not the reality. So one change for us where we need to push is that senior leaders spend more time. Have you undertaken training? So this was a question for senior leaders. Have you undertaken training or development around the role and responsibilities of project sponsorship and/or the fundamentals of project management? So next poll, and I think this is the almost last question. Then we'll have some nice discussion and the great panel today. So you think that the sponsors, the current senior executives have been trained? First, project management, that would be good. So I think the role of the sponsor requires specific training, but if they understand project management, that's already good. So what's your guess? Project management training, 43, 46. No formal training on project sponsorship, 37. I think we can end it up here. Again, very smart replies. 34% of the people have not received any project sponsorship or project management. Only 13%. If we talk about 500 executives, only 13% have received sponsorship. This is a red flag. Yes, half of them, 48%, have received project management training somehow. They're not certified, but they've done something. This is good news, but this shocking, the call for action, the urgency is that project sponsorship training is not available and sponsors don't know what's the role. They don't need to know how to make a WBS. They need to know how to sponsor, how to connect projects to strategy. So I think this is a big finding where, again, our profession, our community has to play a big role. And the last question, I think this is great news as well for us, for people who have been working in project management strategy for so many years. How do you see project management competencies evolving in your organization over the next 5 years? And again, we didn't know the replies in advance, but almost 80% of the senior executives, CEOs around the world say projects are essential for organization. We want to invest and build project management competencies. This is like the best news of the whole survey. They're aware and they want to invest in competencies. When I talk project management, again, just keep in mind that I'm talking about every type of change. It's traditional project management, agile methods, design thinking, strategy implementation. So that kind of body of knowledge is broader than what we see as the body of PM. Okay, but this is good news. People see, senior leaders say, yes, absolutely, this is one of the most important areas we need to invest. There's only 10-12% who say, well, we're already good. We think it's important, we're already good. And there's less than 5% who says projects don't have any impact in our results. We don't care and we don't want to invest. So I think with that, Dr. Saadi, I'm very happy to be able to share these first highlights, especially on senior leaders. There will be a bit more later when I've done the work, but I think in summary, for me, I think this is a great summary. The last slide is, yes, we understand. This is key. This is very important. I think this is the first time ever that I see senior leaders saying this is so important, unanimously almost. And I think this is a great way to start our discussion and invite our panelists. Thank you, Saadi. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, Antonio. Amazing loaded data that requires a lot of thinking. Now, before, I'd like to ask our dear panelists, please to turn on your cam and your audio. Okay. One thing that I've seen more than one person, especially Ghafar Imtiaz, I believe he is a researcher, and he was asking about the type of research and whatnot, how you are doing the research. If you can just answer this question, please, before we start the discussion.
Sure. Yes. This was done through basic questions. So there's no yet any correlations or anything like that. We just had the questions that you see, multiple choice. Some of them you had to choose one. Some of them you had several options. I'm happy to share the survey. But it was not really very scientific. It's just purely a questionnaire to be filled in. We didn't cross-check the companies, so it's kind of not superficial, but not very deep in the sense of academic. Okay, just a business management survey, a strategic survey.
Okay. Thank you very much, Antonio. I'd like to start from the last point. So, based on the findings, you discovered that sponsors or directors, top management, they understand they need to learn project management for their projects to succeed, for their organizations. Now the question, do they know what they should learn? Because apparently, let me skip to a conclusion, the standard project management, although it's very interesting and nice to have for a top manager, it is not what they will do, okay? Because sponsors are upstairs. I want them to learn how to speak to project managers, speak to operations, integrate both until they move the organization from one state to the other and realize the needed value. So what do they need to learn? These sponsors, and is whatever they need to learn, is it available today, or is it something people like us should start to work on developing? So let's start with Mustafa.
Okay, when you just you were asking this question, I remembered one of your presentations, Saadi, and in that presentation, you were just presenting the failure reasons of a project, and almost 80% of the reasons were due to project sponsors or executives. So actually, it seems that mostly senior level people seems to be the real reason for the project failures, because of not supporting the project or giving the required enough resources to the project. So the point that Antonio mentioned is really the last point he mentioned is really valuable, because now they are aware of the value of the results of the projects, because if they don't support those projects, they are now aware of that. Those failures will also be the failure of their companies. So coming to your question, how what to learn from the project executives or sponsors side? Actually, I can just say that it is really important for them to learn how to support those projects. So how to support? They now realize that they have to support, but they have to learn how to support in terms of being included in the decision making process, or in terms of giving enough resources to the projects. So they have to just make the necessary contributions to support those projects and find the answer of how.
Okay, so Olga, you are the sponsor, and you are requested to provide support to the project managed by a project manager. What are you supposed to do for that project manager?
The first thing that I will need to know is what is the business case, what is it that we're trying to achieve, and then I will need to understand more details as to what impact these additional results will have into the project failure, success or failure. So not having it, what does that mean? Having it, what does that mean as well? So yeah, I think for me, the key thing is what value will this additional resource is gonna make, but equally, I think the key question for me as a leader and a sponsor of a project is how can I support you and having open channels of communication so that any issues are flagged to me on time so that I can address them appropriately. So.
Okay, so here you state 2 points. The first, which is in the initiation about the business case, the benefit, the value, okay? This is your role before we even have a project manager. And I will ask Eman to speak to us about this role, about the business case, about the role of the sponsor in the initiation and benefits. And then, okay, I'm gonna ask Aicha about the other part, the open communication and support that a sponsor can offer and invite project managers to ask for. Okay, so Eman, what do you do for us as a sponsor with respect to the business case, benefit management, impact assessment, until you actually support the project so it is realized and awarded by the organization?
Okay, well, actually,
yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Well, actually, the project sponsor is called a project sponsor for a reason at the end of the day, because he should sponsor the project and he should be championing the project and ensure the success of the project from the start to the end. That's why he should be involved from the beginning, the very beginning. And that's why he's needed during the development of the business case and the first stage. So as a project manager, I should approach my project sponsor, get his sign off, get his buy-in, and then from there, he can actually, he can sell that idea, sell that project, sell that initiative to the whole organization. He should be the sponsor or the champion who's actually selling the idea of the project during the initial stage of starting a project. While during or throughout the project journey, he should be always communicating with others, asking them to support the project manager, asking them to provide all the inputs required to support that project and to ensure its success. I believe that should be the role of the project sponsor.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question about this in a bit, which is how many sponsors do actually that today? Okay, but before, let us hear from Aicha. What about the support, Aicha, that is offered or the engagement of the sponsor with the project manager to make them successful?
Okay, thank you. I think first of all, for that, for the project sponsor to be involved, as Olga said from the beginning, he has to understand the concept and the project itself. For him to be able to communicate the exactly project, the exactly vision of what they expect from that project to the organization to be successful. I think it's not only about resources, because you cannot allow resources to be given until you understand what you are doing. It can be also, there is also that point that you can bring me an innovative project, which can be a good idea, because actually, as Antonio said, project management and projects are a boomerang now, and even in my country, we have many projects. But what I've noticed, even in my organization, the support is only on resources, but they don't understand the concept, what the project is involved in, what they expect from the project. I give you an example. 5 years ago, in my organization, we start an ERP implementation. But since no one, as I can say, no one understood what is it ERP. So it was very difficult, at least impossible, for people to how can I say that, to accept that change, to accept what can be done. So they prefer to they resist to that change because the top management, the leaders, didn't appropriately communicate what they wanted from the employees. Yeah. So
Antonio, back to you. Yes, sorry.
No, it's okay. So I think that the most important thing for me is the understanding of the concept. First, for you to be able to communicate.
So Antonio, how will you make the sponsor communicate? How will you make a sponsor a sponsor? You are muted.
Yeah, I think, Saadi, this is something we need to learn. As project professionals to make sure it happens.
Please, one of you who does not have an earphone has echo. Please mute.
It's better now?
Yes.
So what I was saying, I think
still an echo.
From what there's still an echo. One second. Better. Okay. So what I was saying, Saadi, I agree with what has been said.
Let us all please mute. And until Antonio.
Technology. Better. Okay, so I was saying, I completely agree what has been said by my fellow colleagues. Absolutely right. I think one of the points I would say maybe to add is sponsors often don't know what is a project, and they don't know what is a business case or how, or a purpose, or they are appointed from the top. And I think we should look at them as people we need to coach. We tend to think about, let's coach the team, but I think the number one first person that we need to coach at the beginning of the project is the sponsor, and say, sponsor, let's have a meeting, and I'll explain you what's your role, and this is what I need from you, and let's look at the business case because maybe it's not clear for you. So I think if we, as you can see from the statistics and the research, is one of the first things that I do when I start a project is educate the sponsor and take time to explain them their role, and make sure that they understand the project, and make sure that they know why we do the project, what's the rationale, what are we expecting. And so I think if we all do that, everybody who's running projects, and we take a few hours at the beginning throughout the project in the first phase to educate the sponsors, they will do their job better. It's not in the plans, it's not in the books, it's not something that we learn to do, but I think afterwards, when they are engaged, they become allies throughout the projects, they are ambassadors. So maybe just a very practical view on how we can address the challenge that was referred by my friends here.
Okay, we'll start to take some questions and some notes by the audience, but again, I have another concern. You said start to coach the sponsor. Are they coachable? My dear panelists, have you ever seen a coachable sponsor? Anybody? I never did. If one of you did see a sponsor who is capable to be coached, please tell us. We're gonna give him a Nobel Prize in project sponsorship. No?
Well, if you allow me.
Please, Eman.
So I didn't see any coachable executive or sponsor so far, to be very, very frank and honest. But however, there are some people who are really, or there are some sponsors who think that they are really don't need any training. And that was the essence behind creating the Brightline Initiative at the first place. Because Brightline Initiative, it was created for the sake of educating leaders on how to sponsor and how to understand the value of project management as strategy management. So basically, who did that training? Brightline Initiative, we did it as project managers on the field, on the ground, but they never have the chance to do the project management or the Brightline Initiative executive course, because they believe that they are really above all the limits and they understand everything, and we are actually the project managers who are responsible to educate everyone on the ground.
And if
yes, Olga, please.
Yeah, if I may add actually to your question, there are senior executives who are coachable, and I have met quite a lot of them in my life. Okay. I think the key thing for me there is, for the leader, it takes a certain type of leader to be coachable. In my personal experience, that they exhibit humility. They have self-awareness that I don't know everything. And the whole process of coaching is to try to help them figure that out and figure who else could help them to find these answers. So that's at least my personal view from my experience.
Okay. So we need more of these coachable sponsors. They are hard to find though, okay? It depends on probably the maturity of the organization. Now, yes, Antonio.
we need to be courageous too. Don't be afraid of the sponsor. Of course, it depends sometimes on the culture, on your position, but as an experienced professional in project change strategy, we should be able to tell the sponsor, listen, dear sponsor, I'm very happy to work with you with this project, but if you're not ready to commit the time, let's not start the project. If you're ready to support us, it's not going to work. So let's not start. So I think we need to be sometimes, I've done that several times, saying to the sponsors, if these two senior leaders don't change their mind and they're not supportive, let's stop the project right now. And these were senior partners. And to my amaze, the senior partner, senior sponsor called the two executives to the room right away. And we had a very tough discussions. We agreed to continue and things went much smoother. So let's not be afraid. Let's be courageous sometimes when we can and say, let's stop it. We're just wasting our time, your resources. So let's work together or let's not. So I'm being a bit extreme on the message, but we can do that. We should be able to step up and say, if we don't change, if you're not supporting, we're wasting our time.
Okay. So you need to have courage. You need to step up and speak to them, invite them to collaborate, okay, communicate better. Although they should be the ones who would make the engagement and enhance the communication, but there is nothing wrong in you, the project manager, starting this process if you can. You need to have a lot of politics though, in order to succeed in this manner. This is why communication skills, persuasion, and whatnot are very, very important for the successful project manager who can coach his sponsor. Now, let's take a couple of questions. There are several notes in the chat box. So I'd like, instead of me reading and asking questions, I'd like each one of us to select one and answer it, and perhaps others will also provide their input. So there is a question from Gurpreet Rihal. Is the new handbook a practical guide specifically for executives or professionals or both? So he's asking this question. I believe this is for Antonio.
Thank you for the question. So very clearly for us in HBR, they told me there's two target groups. First, the senior executives. They will never read the PMBOK. No senior executive in the world will read the PMBOK. We need to assume that. So it has to be a practical guide for them. And second, it should be for professionals, project managers who maybe we've been trained to be very technical. And so that we can learn a more general language, some more simple concepts that we can use when dealing with stakeholders and senior leaders. So that is the two target groups. So for people with experience, should be fun to read and learn a few concepts, and for senior leaders to do their job better. That's what we want.
Okay. So Eman, have you locked on a question?
Well, actually, I found something here. Most of the time, the project implementation team know project management, but top executives don't know, and this brings lack of interest in the project. They should be given project strategic training in order to see their link to the bigger strategy. I do believe in that. Actually, it's not a question, but rather it's a comment from my end. So basically, yes, I do agree that they should be given the training to educate them on how to manage their strategies, how to manage projects, and how to lead and sponsor the projects. And strategy management is essential for them, actually, in terms of training, because in order for them to understand how they align their projects to the strategy, because at the end of the day, it's not the number of initiatives or the number of projects that they are executing per year. It's the alignment that they are establishing between each and every project and between the projects and the overall strategy of the whole organization. It's about the value delivery at the end of the day. How much value that they are delivering in each and every strategic project that they are delivering. And it's about optimization of resources, let's say, how they can optimize their resources by delivering certain projects. There are a lot of concepts that they need to abide by, they need to apply in order for them to reach to their strategic objectives at the end of the day. So what I think is essential for them in terms of training is strategy implementation. And as part of that, there should be some project management touch, project management flavor, in order for them to understand and absorb how they can add value by delivering projects as part of their strategy. I hope that answers the question.
It's a beautiful answer. Thank you. And I would like Antonio to tell us, what is the balance? How much percentage would you put on strategy implementation? And how much would you put on, let's say, strategic project management or portfolio management? When talking about the sponsor, of course, technical project management is out of the question, because we do have a big problem. The sponsors that are around focus on the technical aspects only. And by doing this, they are micromanaging. No, it's not taking the role of the project manager. You need to allow them to do their job and be accountable for it and empower them to do it, okay? So in this perspective, we need to lift them up, and they need to learn how to do a bit of both portfolio management and strategy realization or implementation. So what's the recipe between both? Is it 50-50? Is it 80-20? How do you see it, Antonio? Maybe I'm uncovering some of the secrets of your book now.
Well, I'm sure Olga, Mustafa, and Eman, and they will have a good view on that one too. I think there is an evolution. I don't know if I've shared one of my recent topics I'm working is, I talk about we're moving from a world of driven by efficiency, a world driven by efficiency, where it's all about, we know the world, there's no major changes in the world. It's about how can we do things in the current environment the best way possible, to a world driven by change, where everything changed and we need to change much faster. And so in the past, the strategic planning, the portfolio decisions would spend maybe 70%, will take a lot of their time on the thinking. Strategies will last 9 years, according to research. Today, there's no strategy that lasts 9 years. No way. In no industry, even in energy and mining, there's. So what you see in a world driven by change is that kind of percentage has shifted, where you need to spend more time on implementation, testing ideas, testing some projects, trying small things, trying big things, then still doing portfolio. So I would say portfolio, long-term scenarios, I think that would be 30%, where implementation, learning by doing, continuous learning, prototyping, testing, it will become 70%. Not now, it depends on the industry, but I think we're moving from something more stable to something really fluid. So naturally, that percentage will evolve towards implementation. And that's what we're trying to put together in this Strategy Implementation Institute.
So Aicha, are you with us? Because maybe we lost you a bit. Can you hear us? Maybe she has a technical problem. So let me go to Mustafa on this. So if the sponsor has to spend 30% on portfolio management for the long term and 70% on strategy implementation and learning new things, learning and testing, meanings he's gonna learn, and or she. We are always speaking about the sponsor as if he is a he, but it could be a she or a he. Okay, if we are in Canada and you say the he before the she, they'll just kick you off. So the sponsor, he or she, okay, would need to do some testing with strategy implementation to check what works and what does not work. And the testing is not merely on the ideation and brainstorming for projects outside the organization, but as well, and maybe even more important, for the existence, for the sustainability, and for the transformation of the organization itself. So much of what the sponsor will be doing is within the organization to keep it surviving, so it is not outdated. There is a risk here, because when this type of futuristic sponsor Antonio is talking about starts his or her new method or way, they usually start to fail, to learn from the failure, but others will not wait. They'll just start to shoot at you because they are traditional, and your way might threaten their status quo they have been used to manage the organization for years before. So what do you do in Turkey with respect to this, Mustafa? Can you unmute?
May I just combine this with one of the questions asked by Moaz Garbi? Moaz asks, what are the metrics for success? So cost, schedule, or other attributes like the benefit realization. So first of all, project sponsors or project managers or all other stakeholders should decide on what the definition of success in order to prevent some basic failures, or in order to make a trial and error method like you mentioned. So first of all, define what the success is for the project or for the organization, and be sure that everybody, each of the stakeholders has different type of definition of project success. And but within those definitions, we have to put benefit realization in the center, in the middle of the success definition, because that is the glue that will help us connect execution with the strategy. So in order to prevent those kind of failures during those project sponsors strategy implementation or project management phase, we have to completely define the exact project definition of success and put the benefit in the center of that definition for all stakeholders.
Okay, so Olga, speaking about benefits, how good are sponsors in providing measurable benefits that they can track throughout the life cycle of the investment, especially the coachable ones? I'm taking you on that. Maybe you have to unmute, please.
Yes, yeah. I will unmute. So that's an interesting one. So I'm thinking that in terms of there are a lot of different measures, obviously, that define the success of a project. And yes, was it delivered on time? Yes, did it actually stay on budget? Did it achieve all the results? I think from my perspective, especially with the coachable ones, from my perspective, I would say that the key thing is clarity. First of all, clarity of the measures from the start. Having too many measures sometimes can complicate things. Being clear on what are the objectives, what is it that we're trying to achieve here, and making sure that you stay on track, and where not, then by coaching someone, trying to figure out and help them figure out themselves what is the reason that this is not happening, where do they need to devote resources, how can they support actively the project, because sometimes it could be all down to them not supporting enough.
Thank you. Now, Antonio, there is a question from Frednand Furia. He did consultation and facilitation, strategic plan implementation for one of the regulatory authorities in Tanzania, but that service much on monitoring and evaluation. His question, will SIP be more useful in this respect? And as an aspirant for SIP, will I be able to add potential value to organizations in Tanzania?
Great question. Thank you for asking and sharing your experience. I think I would say yes, but I'm a bit biased because I built this program with my partner based on what I thought was important for us to grow as project managers into strategy implementation. So it's really what I think we need, the skills that we need to build. For example, leadership excellence or financial value or culture or business models. But I think to answer your question, I think there's no one better than Olga, Eman, or Mustafa who have gone through the program. They're all very experienced people and either coaching, project management, leadership, research. So I think they can tell you more honestly, and I want to highlight honestly the strengths and the weaknesses of this development program that we've set up together. And so that's, I think, my view.
So Eman is very honest. She will start by telling us what the pros and the cons. What are the cons, Eman? I asked the hard questions to Eman. Yes.
The cons of the program, you mean?
Of the SIP.
Of the SIP, I don't have any cons on my plate, actually. But let me just give you a short and brief answer, and it will summarize the whole journey of the SIP for me, at least. It all started back in May. I attended one of the webinars that you have actually hosted. And Antonio, I believe, or Robin was there. So they were promoting the program, and I got encouraged to register for this program, to be honest. And then I looked at the strategy implementation framework that was already in the website of the Strategy Implementation Institute, and I got shocked. It was really impressive, you know. And I said, I have implemented a lot of these concepts before, and I didn't go for a coherent and structured course as such. So let me just try myself and go for the course, regardless whether I will get the certificate or not. So I decided to go for the course, and I paid for it. And I attended the course fully, and then I realized that I stopped, I paused. I realized that there is no one from the GCC, there is no one from Bahrain. So what actually drives me to take the certificate then is to be the first one in Bahrain who's actually got that certificate. I will not be the first climber to the Everest, and I will not be the first one to head the North Pole or the South Pole. So I will be the first SIP at least. So based on that, I registered for the exam. I cleared the exam, and it was really a good and fruitful journey. I believe it added a lot of concepts to me. It structured the knowledge in my head, and it helps me a lot in building the concepts and building the knowledge, first of all, regardless of the practice, because I've been practicing this for a very long time. But the structured knowledge is always essential. Just to summarize the whole journey.
Okay, and these are all the cons. Okay. Let us see if Mustafa has some of the pros. So we were talking the other day, and you told me you already provided coaching for 2 or 3 organizations in Turkey on strategy implementation. So my question is what got these organizations to think about this specific topic today?
Okay. Actually, we are, most of the organizations, my organization also, we really make very good strategic plans. And they are 3 to 5 year plans generally. But when it comes to realizing and implementing those plans, we have really hard challenges. And at the end of the day, we look at the failures and we try to understand the reasons, and generally we find reasons outside of our organization, outside reasons, I may say. So that does not make any contribution to our company's strategic goals. So that's the failure. So companies realizing that other than finding reasons outside of their organizations, when they turn into the inside and try to search for the reasons that really can be corrected or changed, then they focus on how to make that happen. So they start a journey of change of a mindset. So if an organization, if a leadership team can achieve that, to start that journey of changing mindset, they find that strategic implementation is important and they try to find a solution on how to. So if an organization starts to ask that question, how to achieve that mindset change, then you can understand that they are ready to get that chance to change their strategic view or mindset. So now those organizations realize that they can really happen to make that change. I mean, they can really focus on the reasons of failures and they can prevent those failures. They can learn from the mistakes and they can achieve a better strategic implementation. So it is all about whether the company is ready for that change or not. So the companies that really demands or comes to me on that part is the ones that had some experiences of failures, and they decided to fix those failures. They understand and discovered that those failures can be also fixed, and they are not from coming outside, but they can fix them, and they just try to make that happen and come to learn how. So when they ask question of how, they are ready to achieve that strategic implementation.
Very, very nice. So it goes back to what Olga said, that they are humble enough to address the fact that they are the causes of many of the failures. In fact, on one of the very large PMOs we established in the GCC, after two months of heavy assessment and speaking to people, qualitative, quantitative, we came up to a diagram that showed the reasons of failure. And when the Director General saw that 80% of the reason of failure is due to them, are internal. They are internal, meaning they can do something about them. The external are the ones you cannot control or you cannot undo. Okay, you can be better prepared for, but you cannot stop. But the internal, with proper process improvement, you can minimize these losses. And he said, yes, he had this moment of professional humility, not humility, humbleness. And he said, yes, we are the reason. This is us. We are the reason of our own failure. And at this point, because of this, we spent 3 or 4 years of improvement until we got like 20% or more on a huge multi-billion portfolio. 20% is a large number. So having said that, Olga, because I have a theory of my own, but I would like to ask you a question. I'm very sorry that Aicha is trying to join and seems like she has technical issues. As soon as she's in, I would like her to be involved with us. Olga, Alan Samaru is asking a question. Various publications report different results. All say high failure rate, like 25% failure rate is seen as high. What is considered a good failure rate?
Okay. I'm not quite sure how to answer that actually, but I don't know the answer to that in terms of the percentage, and possibly Antonio is better placed to answer that. But what I would say is that irrespective of the rate or not, the important thing these days is that you fail, learn from your mistakes, move on, make sure you don't repeat them again. That's the important thing. So, but Antonio, I don't know if you know the rate, but.
So Antonio, what is a good failure rate?
I think it's important to, I like some companies categorize the type of projects. There's some projects that should have 0 failure rate. I think continuous improvement, the easy ones should have 0. The more explorative, first, maybe we should not even call them projects, you know? We call projects any idea, and we know that as long as the idea is not mature, we don't know really the technology, we've not built some experience, we know what we want, then why do we call projects things that are still in the space and we're still ideation? So, but anyway, that's another reflection and discussion point. But I think those can fail because most of the most amazing projects, they always were learning from mistakes, and then we come back and we do it better. And you have lots of examples of that. So I would say at least 25% of this explorative. And if you look at Alex and Eve Osterwald business model generation on the latest research, it's about 70% of their projects in the innovation space, in the portfolio early stage, will fail, and we should assume. But don't put 10 million, put just 100,000 case. Yeah, invest small in these ideas, so that you don't put the whole thing into fire, you know? So small experiments, they can fail. Put 10,000, 100,000, and have 20 of them. It's a bit like gambling in the casino. One of them will be great, then you put in the whole project behind, and that one should not fail or can be adjusted a bit. So I think we need to be smart when we talk about failure. Some of them cannot fail. The Olympic Games cannot fail. Because they cannot fail. Maybe afterwards with the benefits and the investment, yes. But I think it's important that we start talking about when failure is good and when failure is bad.
Okay. So one question from Nabil Farhat Talib, who likes to answer a question about AI, because he's asking, what about AI between professional and executive officer? Is there something artificial intelligence can do to make this bridge between the professional and between the project manager and the sponsor? Can AI help us? No AI is here. Next time I'm gonna get a bot as a panelist and see what she will answer. Okay.
Saadi, I may just make a contribution.
Yes, please.
Artificial intelligence. So actually, nowadays, artificial intelligence has been started using as a decision-making tool. So we have, as project managers, make various decisions throughout our project execution. And some decisions may be may need some lots of data to be combined. So in terms of using artificial intelligence in order to make decisions requiring those lots of data to be acquired, then that will be very helpful. And in terms of time saving, so artificial intelligence, in my opinion, will help project managers to save time in order to make more accurate decisions. So that will also help project sponsors to save time and to save money.
Yes, they would help sponsors make steering decisions, perhaps, if they have the big data and they have the right algorithms and models and project managers to solve technical problems. But I don't believe AI will resolve the emotional intelligence aspect, which is required to be enhanced between both the sponsor and the project manager. And anybody have seen AI do emotional intelligence? Olga?
I'm afraid no, not yet. May already be out there, but I'm just not aware yet.
Okay. Now, another question from Alan Samaru. From the research so far, were you able to gauge if sponsors understood their role? Back to the basic question. Antonio. You are muted, Antonio.
My experience, this not comes from the research. My experience is that most sponsors don't know their role. They don't know. And one fact that I see often is that sponsors are very happy the more projects they sponsor. So they're not about, I'm sponsoring these very important projects. They like to brag about, well, I'm sponsoring 25 projects. And I say, well, that's a bad sign. So that's my experience, is that most of them, they don't know. They've not been trained. We've seen that, just about 12%. So I think that's an assumption that we should always take. Sponsors need to be explained, trained, and dedicate time at the beginning of the project. And if you do that, I think it can be very beneficial and help you throughout the project. Assume they don't know their role. I think that's the best. If they do, this is great. There will be always a few of them, and I see a few of them that are dedicated, that participate in the meetings. They might be even in the stand-up meeting on the mornings. So that's great. You need to manage that they don't micromanage either. So that's another challenge, and probably it's another type of coaching that Olga can talk about, but you don't want them to micromanage either. That's a big challenge if that happens too. But yeah, assume they don't know and put it in your plans to train them, to explain them, to share some research. Maybe prepare a small 1 or 2 pager guide on saying, well, these are, from what I've read, this is good practice, and I'm happy to share that with you. And use the steering committee. You know, the steering committee, it's a body the same that they might need to be trained. So use one of the first steering committees to say, listen, well, these are things that we need to take into account. Not just the sponsor who plays it, but we all together, especially on stakeholder management, on benefit management. So use the forums that we build to coach and explain and train, not just to report. I think that's the easy part, and that's where we don't add too much value.
Okay. Now, a question from Frank O'Keir. He's talking about project sponsors burdened with operation activities, don't have time for the project. He thinks sponsors should be relieved of their operational duties while sponsoring projects. Now, I have an answer to this. If a sponsor is relieved from his or her operational duties, they stop to become sponsors because they have their power from being functional managers in the organization, because most of organizations are not project-based organizations. They are functional-based organizations. What do you think about this idea, Eman?
I think that sponsor should, again, the role of the sponsor is not to manage the operational side of the projects or the technical side of the project. It's the role of the project manager at the end of the day. But however, the project sponsor should champion, and he should sell the idea, he should communicate, he should provide the resources, the required resources, and he should actually, he or she should ensure that benefits are being realized on time and with the quality standards or the measures that were determined in the beginning of the project. So basically, the project sponsor should not be really on the functional or operational or the technical side of these projects. He should be looking at the business, how he can run the business, how he can transform the business, how he can grow the business, and instead of looking at the technical details of that particular project that the project manager should be responsible for.
Now, Saeed Mubarak, he was our presenter 2 weeks ago. He provided an amazing digitalization webinar. And he's talking about, it's really strange how failure is defined here. No one wants to fail, as failures are very costly and can be catastrophic. Antonio, how would you define good failures? Now, one thing, Saeed comes from the capital, oil and gas and infrastructure projects. So their projects are like 6 billion projects, and they have 6 to 8 years span with stage gate controls, proper governance, committee, and so on.
Yeah. So those projects you don't want to fail. No.
Okay.
That's what's good failure? I think good failure is when it's narrowly scoped, when you know that the consequences of that project or prototype or test are not massive. Big failure is if we want to go to Mars and the first mission with man and woman, big failure. If the vessel is empty, that's not a big failure. We learn from that. So I think the same is applicable for projects. When we have done some risk management, when we start an experiment where we're ready to learn, then yeah, this is good. But when you are putting the big bets, those are the ones that you need to be very careful. So especially the projects that you just mentioned on oil and gas. So you can do small experiments because we're going to learn. It's when we learn to walk, we fail a lot of times. And then at one point we start getting the trick and we walk. The same for projects. Some of them we need to just let them fail and learn from that, but in a very kind of limited space. And we don't do that enough. We don't really manage like that our portfolio where we say, well, this type of projects, small projects, let them fail and we reward that and we learn. And those type of projects we don't, let's put the best project management, the best strategy to make sure that they happen. There's always possibilities of failures. You can never guarantee a project to be successful. There's always some risks, but you can manage those things as well. So I think that's the way I would see failure. Good failure is the one that we control.
Yeah. Now from Ahmad Abdussalam from Tunis, our friend from Drina Consulting, he's saying, and this question is for Olga, strategy delivery do not only depend on process and tactics, it depends on politics and influence. Can we be a successful sponsor without being an influencer? How can we cultivate sponsors' persuasion skills? Or should we consider lobbying, influencing as mandatory skills for sponsors?
Quite a lot of things there, but I think from my perspective and what I normally personally do when I'm trying to sponsor a process or anything else is that I start with my stakeholder map. I'm trying to figure out, first of all, who are the key players that I need to actually talk to and influence in that respect. And then I start my course of action in terms of how to bring them on. So do you mind repeating the second question? Because there were quite a few questions there, actually.
He's asking about persuasion skills, lobbying, influencing. All these skills should be mandatory. If you were writing like a competency management framework for the sponsor, would they include these types of skills?
They would, but they would definitely, but I wouldn't see them in isolation because they will need also a good business case for the project as to what is the value that the project is going to bring in. So important, yes, but not in isolation. We need to see the bigger picture there as to the importance of the project. So no matter how, because otherwise you may have those skills and convince people, but if there is no business case, it's unlikely that you'll get them on board. Or if you get them on board, possibly afterwards, it turns out that it may have been not a good project and there is a cost involved and a failure possibly.
Yeah, reminded me of the session with Steve about managing benefits. When he noted that 10 out of 10 business cases says, yes, let's go for the project. And this is the problem, because in many organizations, they write the business case to justify the project rather than to seek the right benefit or the right recipe of benefit and how to realize them. And the business case would tell us whether or not this course of action is the right one or the best one or the most optimized one for the organization. I believe managing good business cases is a vital skill. One thing, Antonio, and I congratulate you for collaborating with APMG for the strategy implementation professional. When I started to look at their portfolio, I found they have a certification for sponsors. They have a certification for business case. They have a certification for managing benefits, and so on. So a lot of the competencies we might be looking for a good sponsors might be scattered out there within more than one body of knowledge, which is normally the case. Perhaps one day somebody would establish a sponsor body of knowledge. I don't know. It might be a nice idea to think about in the future. Now, Antonio is smiling, so this means we exceeded the time. I'm gonna take one last question, then I have an idea and I'll take ask each one of you to provide a closing note. And the last question from Samar Naufal, I'm gonna address it to Mustafa. Why do we not change the management method of projects instead of training courses, etc.? We establish a major center in which management requirements of staff, culture, and resources include monitoring the management of enterprises. Maybe she's asking about having some sort of center of excellence where it's not only training, it's on-the-job training. What do you think, Mustafa? Unmute, please.
Actually, I'm also a fan of on-the-job training when project management is considered, because as we know, project management is not only science but also art. So the art side can only be learned, in my opinion, by mentors, by getting help from mentors, and by just working on the job training. So that's also my point of view, that it is very critical other than getting training. So by getting training or by just preparing for certificates like PMP, you learn the technical side of project management, but it is not enough to be successful. So you have to also focus on the art side of the project management, and that's right. We should focus on that.
Okay.
On the job training.
So, last notes. What do you like to share with our audience who are still late with us tonight? Eman, do you have last ideas or advices or anything you have on your mind that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I would like to advise them to go for the SIP course, because I benefited from that course. So I really advise each and everyone to go for that course if they are really interested in strategy implementation. and they will get a discount by advisors, I believe. You still have that promo code, right?
Yes, still there.
Okay, so they will get a discount. So I advise everyone to go for that course because it builds a structured knowledge around how to build a strategy for the organization.
Okay, thank you for that. Olga, any last thoughts or ideas?
I think from my perspective, first of all, fantastic questions that we got tonight from the audience, quite challenging. And I think the key thing for me at this point in time, and if anything with the COVID environment, it's proven. Strategy plans, they're there, but we cannot really think ahead for very, very long time. We need to learn to build business agility at this point and start thinking, okay, this is the plan. Let's see what other factors are coming in, how we need to build ourselves to be able to adapt easily in the new changes. And yes, mistakes will happen, failures will happen, but learn from them. So thank you.
Thank you. Maybe later on, we together, me and you, we are going to write a book. We call it The Coachable Sponsor.
I'll take you up on this.
Okay. Antonio is interested. Okay, he's not gonna leave us alone. The coachable sponsor. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I have the name. Okay. So you have to include me. He or she. Okay. So Mustafa, last thoughts.
Okay, I see project management professional as a never-ending journey. And in the near future, strategic implementation professional will be very valuable stop for this journey. So I really recommend our attendees to at least have a look at what this professional and try to understand how they can benefit as a project manager also. So I recommend this professional highly.
Okay, thank you. Antonio, you want to go last, or should I or say an idea you have?
No, I go first. I'd give you the honor to close.
Okay.
Saadi, as always, a pleasure being with you. What an amazing group with Olga, Eman, Mustafa, right people. So you always gather amazing people in these calls, and it's an honor to be here. I think, Saadi, what you're doing for the profession, it's amazing, it's invaluable, it's for free on top of that. So I want to thank you for the time. I know it's not easy to organize these events and takes a lot of time. The quality is always extraordinary, the speakers, but also the participants. The amount of questions and the quality are amazing. So congratulations. Thank you, Saadi, and the team behind. My final thought is that I think it has never been such a world where there's more need for project professional strategy implementations. I think we're moving from a world where it was about deep core expertise in marketing, finance, to a world where we need deep generalist skills, which is about project change, strategy implementation, agile methods. So I think if we are ready to learn, to evolve in different areas, I think we're going to see 5-10 years where we have the opportunity to shine and to deliver change and value, not just the money, but impact in societies in the world. So I'm super excited, and thank you again. And it was great to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, everybody. I have a last thought, which has been on my mind for some time. You know, Sun Tzu, he says, strategy without tactics is the slowest path to success. Tactics without strategy is just noise before defeat. So if you take this idea and look, before we encountered the strategy implementation roadmap, okay, because the SIP is all about the roadmap and the content, And right now, the new thing is the body of knowledge, okay? But we're gonna speak about this in more detail later on. Now, before that, when we looked at the full model, okay, we have portfolio management, which is knowing what to do, or doing the right things, and project management, which is doing things right, okay, like the tactics and the strategy. But the standards of the PMBOK, we all know it. The standards for portfolio management as of PMI and Axilos and others, they speak about managing in a very high level the value or the benefit. And they tell us it takes two to tango. You need projects to provide the enablers or the capabilities, but you need the operations to realize the benefit, okay? You cannot live without either of them for your portfolio to be successful. From a project-driven discipline perspective, we always knew this concept, but we did not have any anchor inside the operation and how to actually go into the operation and prepare it from the perspective of leadership, of customer engagement, of team engagement, of the evolution of the culture, of the framework, the model business framework, of the digitalization, everything which is required and needed by operation to upgrade operation so they are mature enough to reap the benefits out of these projects. And it was like clapping with one hand in the air, because we're focusing all the time in the area of project and portfolio. Whereas under portfolio, there are operations, and I believe strategy implementation fills this gap. So now we can clap because now we have two hands. These are my 2 cents with respect to the strategy implementation professional. Okay?
Very nice.
Thank you. So thank you, Antonio, very much. Always a pleasure. Okay. So far you did not succeed to bore us. Not a single time, okay? And you will never will. Thank you every time, always pleased to have you. Eman, thank you very much, very proud of you, okay?
Thank you so much, Dr. Saadi.
Thank you, Eman. Olga, thank you very much for your contributions with us tonight, okay? We still have this sponsor, coachable sponsor. Need to think a lot about it. And Mustafa, welcome again. Always also a pleasure to have you. Also welcome Aicha, and I'm very sorry she had technical problems. She could not continue with us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, our dear participants. Looking forward to see you next week. Next Wednesday, we will have a webinar about bidding and its relationship to the early phases in project management with one of the experts in the domain, a person who spent 25 years in the industry doing both project management and bidding and business development, and currently doing his research, his doctorate on the same. So join us on this next week. Until then, stay safe. Always a pleasure to participate in these oases, these webinars, when we connect and we share knowledge and we learn from each other. During these hard times makes our days better. Okay, so thank you very much. Have a very nice evening and good night to all. Stay safe and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.